Hello, everyone. I'm Adele Levine. This is the House Medium. I am your House Medium. If you are watching this on YouTube, you may notice some changes. I hope you like it. And I'm excited about today's episode because I was going to wait to do this one because last week I did an episode, and I already did like an alien episode. But I was like on the Phoenix Lights, but I wanted to do the Zimbabwe children because I have had a feeling about this for a long time, ever since I heard about it. Um, talked about it. I don't know if I've talked about it to myself, but even when I saw the documentary about it, I just felt like it's very rare that I believe these things. The Phoenix Lights is one of them. This is one of them. So we are going to get into that story, and then I'll read you at the end some stories some of you have sent to me to read. Now, I know some of you have found my podcast recently, and you're used to the old version where I read people's stories. I put sound effects and I had people on and I told them what I see. The problem is that it started to get a little difficult. It's not always easy for me to have time to record. But most importantly, it's like not everybody's used to coming on a podcast. So I think I was running more into that. There's a lot of nervousness, uncomfortableness. So I decided to go this route. However, it doesn't mean I don't want your stories. I still want you to send in your stories and I will read them and I will tell you what I see about it. And sometimes I'm going to dedicate a whole episode, the reader's room episode, for it. Putting on lip gloss. There you go. Okay. So we're going to get into, I don't have any real announcements today. Just one slight announcement. I am doing an in-person class and I have the information here that is going to be on candle magic. And in the in-person class, people are going to come. They're going to, and we'll provide everything, the candle. I'm doing this with Susie. And she'll have like the oil and the candle and we'll have everything there. And this will be an intention magic candle magic class where I'm going to show you how I do it from a more intuitive way, a less like follow all these rules way. I used to do candle magic for other people. I do it for myself, but I used to do it a lot for other people and sell it, but it just became a lot to ship and everything. So I don't do that so much. She sent me the information. There's only going to be 10 spots, and I think someone already signed up. So it's you go to sewingnutsclasses.com. So SEWINGNUTS classes.com. If you go there, you can sign up. Okay? And it'll tell you where it's going to be and all of that jazz. Okay. So I was trying to look and see. I thought I saw something. I was like, what is that? And yeah, so it's going to be here. I'm just looking on the website. It's a candle intention class. It will be Sunday, the 14th of September from 6 to 8. And it's only $25. And I think that's totally worth it. Totally. And so it's like a simple little class. I'm going to be starting to do more and more things like this in person. So buckle up. All right. That's the announcement. And also I just posted a online class for my Patreon people on raising vibration. It's basically a longer extension of the meditation I put in for the sacred scholars, but I do have little tips and tricks and things of helping you understand raising your vibration. But I think people need it. It has been wild out there. I forgot to tell you, I do have a little story. Hold on. Hold on. I was trying to be all profesh, but hold on. I have a couple of stories. I have a couple of stories. One is kind of a little commentary. We're in the Medium Brew Cafe now, of how women tend to react in the wild. I don't know about you ladies, but to me, I always feel like we're a bunch of deer running around with lions around us all the time. And even when the lions get older, and then believe me, I have a tip coming after this, and then we're going to get into the story. We still are apprehensive of them. So I was at Trader Joe's and I was just minding my own business, checking out. I kind of tend to be in my own world most of the time. And all of a sudden, this older man, like I'm talking older, like he had to have been 87 years old, like close to 90. He was barely holding on. This is how much I am like, who are you? Where are you about? Where, what do you want from me? Attitude I have. So he comes and he's like inching closer, and I'm like, literally, like, yeah. And he goes, I want to tell you, your tag is inside out. And on my shirt, your shirt's inside out. Now, I love Free People. I love this brand, and they oftentimes have clothes that look inside out, and the tag will be on the outside. This shirt wasn't one of them, but I didn't care. I said, yeah, it's on purpose. And I took off because I paid. And then the cashier's like, excuse me, you still have to, you know, say if you want cash back, or I didn't finish. I mean, I was like shocked. I'm like, why am I so weirded out? This man, I could just like breathe and he would fall down. I don't know why this was my reaction, but I think it wasn't an intuition. I did have an intuition he was odd, but not going to harm me. But it's kind of more like I'm out in public. I don't know who you are. And why are you talking to me? You know what I'm saying? And that brings me to my next little tip. Oh, by the way, my mug is back. For those of you who don't know this is my mug. Those of you listening, it has a little dragon. It's silver. It has a wizard. I'm only drinking water out of it. Shout out again to Sean, who pointed out that I shouldn't have been drinking lemon water out of a pewter mug. He was correct because I ate away at it inside. But my husband resined it for me. And so now it's all protected and I can drink like water out of it. Isn't that cool? I love this mug. It's so magical. And it's like heavy. Okay. You know how I feel about mugs. Those of you new to me may not know, but I collect mugs. I care about mugs. Okay. So a little tip. I have joined a gym and I hate gyms, just so you know. I like regular, like natural exercise. But I'm really, really getting more and more into, wellness and wanting to not do things just for aesthetics. I don't think losing weight is great. And I lost a lot of weight at some point. Losing weight is great, but if you're not being healthy and strong and lifting weights, and I wanted to do that. But here's a tip. I wanted to go to a gym where, speaking of older people, we're just mostly older people. So this is my little joke also. And older men, so that, ladies, we're left alone. You know what I mean? We just want to work out and be left alone. Even at any age you are bothered or harassed. So I joined this gym. And I'm telling you, it's a good secret, and it's all older people. It's people older than me, and we're talking like people that probably in their 70s or 60s or something. And the reason why I think this is a great little hack is, one, I look at people who are like, you can tell have not lift weights, because you got to lift weights, ladies, once you get to a certain age, and gentlemen, it strengthens. And I was like, this is going to help me with my body care. It kind of motivates me to go, I don't want to not be moving. I don't want to be able to move my body. But also, I feel a little better about myself because I feel very young. I'm just going to be straight up. I'm like, damn, I'm young. Yeah, I am. I am young in this environment. So it kind of is like a little hack of like, yeah, I feel good, I look good, I'm young, I'm vibrant, in comparison. But then I felt like I had this whole hack, but no. Lo and behold, one day there was still some older men still being a little check outy. And then I had that things in Trader Joe's and I was like, well, it's just the way it is. I mean, I still got it. I track 87-year-old. That is it. That's your. You could take that. You can take that for what you will. But I'm telling you, other than that, it definitely to me is a good hack because everyone's there to really, really kind of take care of their bodies, and no one's prancing around. Nobody cares. Some people can't even barely get around. So there you go. And no one goes in the steam room either because I actually had joined a gym where people were older and I learned that they don't like the steam room as much, but they do like the pool. But anyway, I digress. But my point is, I feel young when I walk in. I'm like, yeah, still pretty young in here. Gotta do what you gotta do. All right, let's go out of here and let's get to our story. Like Adela, just get to the story. Okay. So, this is an awesome story, everyone. It's not like needed a lot of sound effects, so if you're used to my plethora of sound effects, you're probably going to be disappointed. I don't have a plethora because it's kind of not that type of story. It's a little bit straightforward, but I think you'll still enjoy it. The Ariel School UFO incident. It is very fascinating, this story. Picture this. Opening. Recess at school. And is usually about who's got the best jump rope skills or whose turn it is on the swings. But on one September morning in 1994, in the quiet rural part of Zimbabwe, 60 kids ran back to their teachers with a story no one could have prepared for. A UFO had landed right next to their playground, and beings with huge black eyes had walked out of it. Now, I find this very fascinating. 60 children. First of all, that's a lot of kids, just saying, at recess. But maybe I'm delusional in thinking that because I went to a school that had very, I went to a very tiny private school. This sounds about right. And they all saw this. This is kind of why I wanted to do the story, piggyback of the Phoenix Lights, because it's another story where there's groups of people seeing the same thing. And yet still people will try to convince someone like, no, you didn't, just gaslight them and say, you didn't see what you said. Okay, here's the scene. When? September 16th, 1994. So this is like, September's coming up. So do the math, because I'm not going to do it. How many years ago it was? Where Ariel School in Rua, a farming community just outside of Harare. Now, excuse me if I'm messing up these names. I apologize. I'm doing the best I can. Zimbabwe. About 250 kids went to the school. So there's only 250 kids at school, so it's actually a pretty small school. But only the younger ones, around 60 children from ages 6 to 12, were outside for recess at the time. Okay, so it's like they're outside, they're playing, and they're like all seeing this. Teachers were inside in a meeting, so the kids were basically on their own in the schoolyard. Different country, do things in a different way. Totally makes sense. It's the kind of setting you'd picture in a children's book. Kids playing, tag, running across a big open field. Nothing strange about it until some of them noticed silver flashes in the sky. Interesting. Silver flashes in the sky. Okay, I'm just tuning into all these things because I'm going to give you my 2 cents, right? 3 cents, if you will. The encounter. The kids said a shiny disc-like craft landed in the bush beyond the schoolyard. Some describe it as circular and with a silver surface and a red glow around it. Okay, I'm just noting these things because, I have check marks of what I think creates legitimacy to me. And I will say all of the kids seeing something, check mark, something glowing, even the red part, check mark, and I'll explain. Then they saw beings emerge. Descriptions matched. Short, thin, very pale skin, spindly arms and legs, which just means skinny arms and legs, and most memorable, large black eyes. So they are describing to a T what people have described over and over as being the Greys. They wore tight black shiny suits. Now, see, I thought this part, again, check mark, but it also is very interesting because whenever you hear anybody going over seeing a Grey, right, they always say that they always describe them as gray, and they always describe them as, sometimes people have said they're not sure if they're wearing something or they're not. So a fact that I believe, first of all, let me just put it this way. I believe children much more than I would believe an adult. Let me repeat that. I believe children much more than I would adult when it comes to paranormal activity, UFOs, spirits, everything, because children are not too far. They are not too far from being connected from that world. But let me put it this way. They are still connected to that world in some sense. And these things are not a surprise to them. So they don't really need to make it up, and they don't need to kind of fantasize, because everything is believable to children. And they're much more open, and they're much more like, yeah, I could see that. And, it isn't a thing for them. Okay. Oops. I lost my place. Okay. Hold on. Okay, here we go. They wore the beings didn't speak out loud, but the children insisted they felt the beings talking inside their minds. Another check mark, telepathic communication, which is 100% I have experienced and I believe those beings work on. And that is how I've experienced talking to those beings. I usually work with interdimensional beings, but either way, another check mark. The message. Many of the kids said beings communicated warnings. Humans were harming the earth. Technology was moving too fast. If we didn't change our ways, the environment would collapse. So this is a common theme that we hear, that aliens, ETs are always trying to say it's about the planet, take care of the planet. I myself have heard those beings say, we are happy to give you technology, but we don't believe in destroying, like you guys are destroying yourselves and the planet. You know what I mean? So they think we can be greedy about it. Let's put it that way. If we didn't change our ways, the environments would collapse. Okay, I said that. One girl years later explained, I felt a message in my head that we're not looking after the planet properly. It frightened me. They were telling us something we should take seriously. So I just feel that when children are talking and describing something, like I said, they're coming from such a pure place. So they're coming from a place of like, if we don't change things, like you guys are not taking care of things properly. You are not taking care of the planet. And they're right. And this is in 1994, before iPhones, before the internet is going to explode the way it has. It was the beginning of all of that. So it makes total sense. Now pause for a second. These are elementary school kids in 1994 rule Zimbabwe. They weren't exactly scrolling through eco-activist TikTok feeds, yet what they describe sounds like a climate change warning decades before that language was mainstream. Exactly. I am saying to you, that's why this is legitimate to me. Because yes, we were warned about the ozone layer in the 80s and all that, but climate change wasn't a grand thing. Let me put it this way. For those of you who are too young to know this, but in the 80s and the 70s, and let me brace yourself for this, I grew up, if we went on a road trip or we were driving to school and you were done eating food, you threw your trash out the window. That wasn't that long ago from 94. It was totally normal. Like your mom would say, throw it out, get it out of the car. There weren't trash cans all over the city. There weren't trash cans all over the place. There weren't like trash cans around the city, around, like recycles and things like this. This wasn't a thing. And this was merely the 70s and 80s. So we're talking 20 years, 15 years later, people were just starting to go, maybe like we should do things differently. Immediate reaction, the kids ran inside terrified and told the teachers what they saw. At first, the adults brushed it off as imagination, but when so many kids came forward with the same details, word spread. Enter the investigators. So this is the part that's interesting. And if you really want to kind of do a deep dive in this, go like again, just like the other one, just like Phoenix Likes that I did last week, go look at the documentary Phenomenon because it's really fascinating. Enter the investigators. Local journalist Cynthia Hind interviewed the children just days after the incident. She recorded their drawings and accounts. The sketches, discs, figures with huge eyes were eerily similar across the board. Soon after, Dr. John Mack, a Harvard psychiatrist and Pulitzer Prize winner, flew to Zimbabwe. He had a reputation for studying people who claimed alien encounters. Mack interviewed dozens of the children one-on-one. He asked them to draw what they saw, describe the beings, and talked about how it felt. The kids stuck to their stories. Their descriptions were consistent, detailed, and emotional. Now, if you go watch the documentary Phenomenal, it's very interesting. They filmed it so you can see. And as an intuitive, and I'll get into all of it at the end, 100% believe these kids. I've worked around kids and I'm a reader, and I know when kids are kind of like making stuff up, they kind of like their eyes roll up, they're kind of fidgety, they kind of aren't really attached to what they're saying. No, these kids were locked in, and you could feel like they were like, what the hell? And you could tell, like, you got to realize kids are like trusting adults. So kids' ideas, like if I told you I see this and you're acting like weirded out, then maybe there's something weird to this. You know what I mean? That's how kids, they judge their world to adults' reaction. So if you're acting all weirded out, then maybe this is like something not normal in the world. And so kids will usually get a little nervous, and they'll show that they're nervous and they're a little scared. But when kids are making stuff up and they're kind of having imagination, they're kind of very like, they think it's funny and they act jokey and they squirm and they kind of get like very fidgety and they kind of get off track and their story starts to change. And I know this because I've worked around kids, but I've also talked to kids who have abilities and seen things versus to kids who, even if kids have abilities and see things, they will tell their story and then go off the rails on some other thing because they're just kind of filling in the gaps. They don't really know. This is not what happens. Go watch it. You can watch those old interviews. That's what I just said. And the kids aren't grinning or showing off. See, I didn't even read this part because I kind of like had chat help me like tell the story. But I'm telling you, that's what's very different. They are very, very like shook. They look genuinely scared, some on the verge of tears, and these aren't teenagers chasing attention. These were little kids who barely knew what UFOs were. Exactly. Decades later, many of those kids, now adults, have spoken in documentaries and interviews. Most still stand by what they saw. Some admit the experience shaped their lives, making them more eco-conscious or spiritually aware. Others say they still can't fully explain, but they'll never forget the eyes of the beings. Okay, I saw in the documentary the adults in the Zimbabwe Ariel School UFO at part, and there was all of them. They still look shook, and that's how I can always tell whenever you're looking at stories about that are paranormal. You can always tell when people are telling the truth by how, for me, it's like something they wish didn't happen. You know what I mean? It's always like people are like, this shit happened. I'm totally freaked out by it. And I almost like wish it didn't happen. I wish I kind of hope this wasn't real. It's not people who are like, this happened. I know this happened. I don't care what people say. And they're like almost excited about it, or they can't wait to tell their story. It's usually people who are like, I don't want to keep telling people about this because it's very hard to accept. And that's how this people, the adults, seem. There is one adult in the Phenomenon documentary that talks about that, oh, I made it up. I made everything up, and I think all the kids did. And this person who says this is only one adult from that all those kids. My read on this person is they made it up because they didn't see anything. That's my feeling. I feel like they didn't see anything, and I can't remember, but it might be that they really didn't see anything, but I just have a feeling they also, two things. I feel like they made up because they didn't see anything, and the other thing is I feel like they want attention for being the naysayer. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get a read at anything they were saying was accurate. Okay, so here's like the skeptic point of view, because I always like to take you, the other side of things. So the skeptic point of view of the Ariel School UFO, the skeptic take. All right, so before we run off and I've convinced aliens landed on the school playground, let's slow down and take a look what the skeptics say. Although I'm convinced. Mass hysteria. So this is a typical thing that people say. They said the same thing about the Phoenix Lights. You know how kids are. One of them screams that they saw a monster and suddenly everyone is running. And that's kind of what that one person who said, oh, the kids are like making stuff up. That's kind of what they imply, is that all the kids were just kind of together telling a story. I've been around children, and I can tell you one thing. You can't even kids to agree on one thing together, let alone making up this elaborate story for years on end. That's one of the skeptic arguments here. With no teachers around, it only takes one or two kids pointing at the sky and saying, look, a UFO, before 60 imaginations start running wild. Mass hysteria, group panic, call it what you want. Contagious. Borrowed from pop culture. So some people are saying, and let's be real, by 1994, UFOs weren't exactly a fresh idea. Movies like Close Encounters, E.T., even the whole black eyes alien image had been floating around for years. Skeptics say that kids may have unconsciously borrowed what they had already seen on TV in the comic books and all that type of stuff. I don't agree. This isn't the go-to for kids. I'm sorry. I've been around children in the 90s. That's actually when I worked with kids the most. Their go-to isn't ETs. Their go-tos are superheroes, maybe ghosts, maybe. But ETs to them are monsters. You know what I mean? It's scary. It is not the go-to. So the interview problem, another big criticism, the way the kids were questioned. First, a local journalist gathered them together, which means they could hear each other's stories and start lining them up. Then Harvard's John Mack, who already believed UFO experiences were real, came in and interviewed them. Skeptics argue that even unintentionally, he may have asked leading questions that nudged the kids into keeping their stories consistent. So the investigation, or was it contamination, is the question. So the bottom line is, the skeptic view is that it's not the kids are lying. Most of them probably really believe, and belief isn't proof. No photos, no physical evidence, no adults backing it up, just 60 kids and one unforgettable story, which, depending on where you land, is either exactly what makes it so compelling or exactly why we should doubt it. Okay, here's the thing. I feel that I believed these kids. And here's what I came up with. My feeling is that part of the world had been visited, I feel, before. And what I know about ETs is that they're very tuned in to things. They knew there would be no adults around. They knew the kids would just be there. And they knew it would be a great opportunity to be seen. And telepathic communication happens very, very fast. You don't need to have a long, drawn out conversation. It's very quick. It's like you ping this into someone's mind and they retrieve it. That's how telepathic communication works. So my sense is that this was 1994. iPhones weren't even happening yet. We weren't there yet, but we were on the verge of technology and the internet and everything really coming into play. I feel like they went to the motherland. They went to a place where they're like, I feel have been before, and also knew that these kids were kind of in the middle of a rural area, not being watched, and they knew this would be a great way to just kind of get their message out. Because look at here, we're still talking about it, right? And that's how those beings work. We're still talking about it, and the message that we're still talking about is climate change. And now we're in climate change. So I just get this feeling they knew what they were doing when they were like, let's go to a place where it's pretty low key. We can kind of be seen. We know children, they'll be accepting of us. We're kind of their size, so it won't be scary. I think people forget these types of beings are not only intelligent, but they're compassionate and empathetic. And in the sense that they didn't want to like freak the kids out. Let's put it this way, it freaked the adults out much more than the children. Now, if you watch the documentary, what's really interesting is one of the teachers talks about, and by the way, obviously this is a spoiler alert, but there's so much in that documentary, so not really. She, at the time, claimed she knew nothing, she saw nothing. And then, meaning at the time when they interviewed her, when it happened, she kind of made it seem like, oh, these kids, they're just being kids type of thing. And then she changed her story during the documentary and said, oh, they did come visit and they took me on their spaceship. And I'm not positive, but I do believe she might even said they took her to their planet or whatever. Lying. I don't believe her. I don't believe she saw shit. And here's why, because I believe that those aliens in the Ariel phenomenon, UFO, wanted only children to see them. It was very intentional. This is what I always say about the spirit world as well, that many times what people don't realize is the spirit world knows children will be more open. They won't be as freaked out. They might be a little bit scared because they're not sure what's going on, but they're much more open, and whatever messages that come through from them will be passed on more. because the fact that children will just say things like, "Oh, I see grandpa, I see grandma, I see so and so." And I believe they used that opportunity to get their message out. I feel like it was very purposeful, very planned, and it worked. And that's what I see. So you go ahead and tell me what you believe. Let me know. Comment on Spotify or Apple or on my Instagram at adayalevine.com or on the House Medium. Tell me what you think, because I rarely see things that I know are real. And this one and the Phoenix Light, but I will say this one, I would say the Phoenix Lights, I believe, let's say 75% sure. And this one, I'm 95% sure, because I can feel it. I feel this was a very pure message. It was like, get your shit together. And I don't feel like it was just, when people forget, when aliens talk about, when ETs talk about take care of your planet, they're not just talking about the earth, the ground, the ocean. They're also talking about us, each other. We're ruining each other. So that's also the message. So there you go. Do what you will with it. Okay. Let's switch gears, and I'll do my final notes on that, but let's switch gears. So here we go. Let me make sure, some people don't want me to read their name. I had somebody send in a story and then they changed their mind, and I understand that. I'm not going to read it, just so you know. The person, if you're listening, don't worry. They sent in a story, it was a dream, and then they changed their mind. And I think because it wasn't their dream, it was their partner's dream. And I think that person was like, I already figured it out. They probably like, I don't need this lady reading about my dream. And I get it. And I totally have no problem with that. But let me make sure that this person didn't tell me to not say their name. Some people want to be anonymous, like anonymous. Okay, this is from Nikki. Feelings in my 1922 home. Hi, Adela. I hope you're fabulous. Love you, the pod. Thank you. I have a paranormal experience since I was a child. I'm reaching out because I live in Scarborough in a beach neighborhood. We've been here since 2023. I love my house and I have a general good feelings here. However, anytime I'm back in my house that faces the woods, I get this feeling I'm not alone. I don't want to give away too much, but which room in particular I feel these feelings, but I can't help but wonder if something is attached either in the particular room or the land where we are on. The woman who cleans my house claims to be an intuitive / medium, though she doesn't practice regularly, and she says my house is, quote, clear. Maybe it's just a vibe I get from the woods, but I've spent 30 years going to the same lake house, surrounded by woods, and I don't get feelings like this or that I'm being watched. Aside from this, I used to live in an old funeral home as a child. What? And the paranormal activity was insane. Okay, Nikki, you need to send your stories into that, right, everybody? I mean, we need the tea on funeral homes activity. I mean, you lived in a funeral home. I'm staring at you if you can't see me, but I'm on YouTube, but I'm staring at you through the mic. Send in that tea, send in that stories. We were told the parents, did I use the term right? I never used the word term tea, but I like it. So I wanted to use it. I'm okay. It's okay, right? Everybody young? We were told that perhaps the spirits were angry with us because we renovated the space, which disturbed them, and that was why they were getting physical. I'm a big time believer since living in this house, which is why I think I've had so many experiences throughout my life. I'm open to it. I would love to know what you think. Thanks. And I'm sending lots to love and light. Oh, thanks. I'm not quite sure, though. She's saying that aside from this, I used to live in an old foeder home as a child, and the paranormal activity was insane. We were told that. Okay, in the funeral home. Okay. Probably the funeral home had more to do with the spirits, but that's a different email. So when it comes to the one that you have now, I guess my first feeling is that I don't feel like it's anything spiritual that you're feeling watching you, meaning I don't feel like it's spirits. I don't feel like it's alien. I do believe it is alien of a sorts because I believe the forest has its own magical energy. The first feeling I got had more to do with what we call the Fey world. You know, the fairy slash gnome slash type of world. And that is the thing I saw. I even saw like definite beings of that sort kind of checking you out and seeing what you're up to, seeing what's going on. So it definitely did not fit to me like spirits looking at you. It felt more like Fey activity, if that makes sense. So I would go more in that direction. I don't feel like it's negative. I feel like it may be beckoning you and saying, hey, this is what I hear, get more connected to the earth, get more connected to your magic side, maybe stop running around all the time, pay attention to what's around you. Doesn't feel negative at all. So I hope that helped. And send in the funeral home. Send in the funeral home stories. Okay, this one is from somebody who Vanessa, she sent in a story. I don't know if you call, but I did an episode and her mom had like this weird hair thing going on where it was sticking up everywhere and they couldn't understand it. And her mom has a lot of activity. But she sent in a picture that has, it's unclear what the potential orbs in the picture are. I have my thoughts. I'm not going to read the rest of part of it because it's just like her talking about her mom and the podcast that, I did about her. But I have my thoughts, of course, but again, very unusual as I didn't notice them until I took the pictures. This is on the back deck of my Seattle home. My mom suggests I send these pictures her way. I shared a bit of my reading with her because she had a reading with me. Warm regards, and it's totally fine to share these pictures. If they pique your interest, thank again for reading and any thoughts. So what it is like pictures with these like white spots, basically. So here's the thing. I don't really see spirits are needing to be orbs. I don't feel they'll be captured on camera either. I feel orbs are genuinely, for the most part, 90% of the time, just something to do with the lighting and camera. I would have tons of orbs around me right now, right? Like I talk to spirits all day, every day. I'm on Zoom calls. No one see orbs. I take pictures of me all the time. There's no orbs because they're not really, that's not how they really show themselves. Not saying it can't happen sometimes, but I don't feel that from my experience, that's not really to me as much of a thing. I know we want it to be because we really want to capture this, but what I will say is that I feel like, especially because they're white and cloudy, they're very cloudy, they're not see-through. I just feel like it's the lighting. I didn't get any vibes, feelings, intuition, but mostly as a seer, I didn't see it. As a medium, I did not see anything spiritual. So thank you for sending me some really cute pictures of your dogs. They're adorable, but I don't see those as being anything to do with spirits. But I hope that kind of gives everybody some insight who sent in these stories. I do still like to get your stories in. I do it a little different that's why I don't really call this like a listener file. It's like, I'm going to read your stories, and as a seer, I'm going to tell you what I see rather than just reading the story. But tell me what you think about the Ariel story. What's your feelings on it? What do you pick up on? Go watch Phenomenon. Go watch that documentary. It's a really good documentary. Of course, like anything, take everything with a grain of salt in the sense of use your own judgment, your own thoughts, your own feelings. You don't have to just believe things just because people are saying it. But I do feel that this particular story, to me, holds credence. I believe things when children tell me 1,000% more than I do with adults, because children, especially the small children, don't have a stake into telling it. And the way they told it, they weren't fidgeting, they weren't putting their eyes up like kids usually when they're kind of making stuff up, kind of look around. They weren't looking at the adults' approval. I know that people said that he could have been leading them, and that is true. But I feel like with children, if it's not true and you were leading them, they would kind of go off the rails and start making up all kinds of things that make no sense at all, because that's what kids do. They just kind of go off in their imagination. So I feel their message was pure. It was pretty simple, pretty easy. We are not taking care of our planet. We are not taking care of each other. We are not taking care of everything. Technology is growing fast, but I don't feel that aliens have a problem with technology growing fast. They have a problem with the greed of others who are hoarding it for themselves. And not using it in the way that it's intended. I have gotten a message, and I'll leave this with you, from that realm, and they have always said they want to help us with our health, help us like take care of our health. And that I feel technology was supposed to be about, and we are just now starting to do it. But I do believe we had the ability to do a lot more than was allowed. But that's another story, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for joining me here on the House Medium. Don't forget to follow me on the housemedium.com. No, not .com. At Gmail. No, not at Gmail. On Instagram. But you can email me at thehousemedium@gmail with your story. If you want to book a reading, you can go to daylevine.com. I do have some openings in September. And also mentorships. I've been doing so many of them, and I've really enjoyed them. It's been a lot of fun, and I really, really look forward to them every time. And also follow me at Adele Levine at Instagram, all social medias, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. You can follow me there. And don't forget, keep an open mind, keep an open heart. Listen to your kids, guys. They actually see and feel a lot more, and I would believe them more than people tend to give them credit for. Follow yourself, follow no one, listen to your inner voice, and I'll see you soon.